Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know we love to nerd out on fascinating books, and today we're diving into a really unique one. Richard Koch's The 80-20 Principle and 92 Other Power Laws of Nature.
I'm excited to talk about this. This is one of those books that can change the way you see the world. Like, it connects the dots between science and success in a way that just clicks.
And we thought this deep dive would be especially useful for all you new entrepreneurs out there, give you a framework for thinking about building a successful business.
You know what I find fascinating about Richard Koch? He's not just some academic writing from an ivory tower.
Right.
This guy's a successful entrepreneur and investor.
Who's been there, done that.
He's walked the walk, built businesses from the ground up, so his insights carry some real weight.
So let's jump right in. The first section we're going to explore is what Koch calls the biological laws of business.
And it all starts with, you guessed it, Charles Darwin.
Of course. Survival of the fittest. I get the basic idea, but how does Darwin's theory actually play out in the business world?
Well, you know how in nature you have all these different variations within a species?
Right, different traits and adaptation.
Exactly. And it's the same in business.
Oh, I see. So like in a new industry, a bunch of businesses pop up. They're all trying to figure out what works, experimenting with different approaches.
That's the variation stage. Then comes the selection part.
The market decides, right? Some thrive, some struggle.
The businesses that best adapt to their environment, their customers, their competitors, all of that, those are the ones that survive and often become the dominant players.
But it doesn't stop there, right? It's not just a one-time adaptation.
You got it. Those successful variations become the starting point for even more variations, more selection. It's a constant cycle of evolution.
Okay, so always evolving, always adapting. Can you give an example of how this works in a real business setting?
Sure. Think about the evolution of the computer industry. It started as this kind of general idea, right? But then it branched out.
Hardware and software, two separate paths.
Exactly. And within each of those branches, even more specialized niches emerged. You've got gaming PCs, you've got business software, all these specialized variations competing for their own little slice of the market.
So for our new entrepreneurs listening, the takeaway here is to find your niche, that unique space where you can stand out.
Absolutely. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, figure out what you do best, what sets you apart, and really own that space.
Now, Koch takes this evolution idea a step further with the idea of business genes. This sounds super intriguing.
Right. It's a powerful analogy. So just like DNA carries genetic information that determines the traits of an organism, businesses have these units of valuable economic information that drive their progress.
So business genes are like a company's secret sauce.
Exactly. That unique combination of knowledge, processes, systems that give them competitive edge helps them grow, replicate their successes.
So as a new entrepreneur, I need to figure out what my unique business genes are, what makes my venture different, and helps it thrive.
You got it. And to really bring this to life, Koch uses a great example, Procter & Gamble and the development of Alestra.
Alestra. That's the fat substitute, right? I didn't know P&G invented it.
Originally, they were developing it for a totally different purpose as a fat substitute for premature babies.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. So how did it end up in our SNAP foods?
Well, when that initial application didn't quite pan out, P&G did something really smart. They looked at this business gene, this Alestra molecule, and thought, where else could this be valuable?
That's smart thinking, not letting a good idea go to waste.
Right. And they realized it had huge potential as a fat substitute in mainstream food products. That's how Alestra, or Olean as they marketed it, ended up in those fat-free Pringles.
Okay, so business genes can be adapted and repurposed to find new avenues for success. I like it. So we've talked about Darwinian evolution. Are there any other biological laws that Koch applies to the business world?
Absolutely. Next up are Gauss's laws. These are all about competition, understanding the dynamics of how businesses interact in the market. The central principle here is competitive exclusion.
Competitive exclusion.
It basically says that two species competing for the same limited resources in the same niche can't coexist forever. One of them will eventually win out.
So in business terms, if I'm going head-to-head with a competitor offering basically the same product or service, one of us is likely to go extinct. Pretty intense.
That's the idea. Koch says that businesses need to find a way to coexist, either by dominating a specific niche or by finding ways to share resources.
So it's like finding your lane and thriving in it.
Yeah, think about Southwest Airlines. They entered a super competitive market, right? Airlines are a tough business, but they carved out this unique niche by focusing on short-haul flights, low fares, no-frills service.
So they differentiated themselves by offering a very specific type of service that appealed to a specific type of traveler.
Exactly. And it worked. They became a dominant force in their corner of the market. But there's another important lesson here, something Koch cautions against: relying on just one key to success.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Right. Businesses need to be adaptable, have multiple strategies to navigate that competitive landscape. He uses the example of Wilkinson Sword and Gillette.
Those are both razor companies, right?
Yep. So Wilkinson Sword was the king of double-edged razors, but they missed the boat on this emerging trend. Disposable razors. They were so focused on what had always worked, they missed the opportunity.
And Gillette swooped in and capitalized on that.
Exactly. So the lesson here is, don't let complacency lead to your downfall. Always be on the lookout for those emerging trends and be willing to adapt.
You know what I find really fascinating is the idea that our ancient instincts can still influence our modern business decisions. This whole field of evolutionary psychology is so interesting.
Right. It's like we're these sophisticated business people building billion-dollar companies, but deep down, we're still operating with Stone Age brains.
So we're making million-dollar deals, but still reacting to the world like our hunter-gatherer ancestors. I can kind of see that.
Koch argues that's exactly what's happening. One of the most interesting examples of this is our tendency towards hierarchy.
Oh yeah, even in companies that try to be all flat and non-hierarchical, you still see these power structures emerge, right?
Like, we're programmed to organize ourselves this way. And another thing, this evolutionary past can make us risk-averse when we should be bolder.
So we're programmed to avoid risk even when we can afford to take a chance.
Yeah. Like back in the day, if you were a hunter-gatherer, taking unnecessary risks could mean, getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger.
So our brains are wired for survival, but in the business world, sometimes you need to take calculated risks to really succeed.
Exactly. So if you're a new entrepreneur, be aware of those ancient instincts. Don't let fear hold you back from going after those big ideas.
This next concept sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah.
The prisoner's dilemma. Isn't that something from game theory? I remember struggling with that in college.
It is, but Koch does a great job of making it relevant to business. So the prisoner's dilemma, imagine you have two criminals who get caught. The police offer them a deal. If one betrays the other, they go free, but their partner serves a long sentence. But if both stay silent, they both get a lighter sentence.
So the dilemma is, acting in your own self-interest might screw you both over in the end.
Exactly. And this plays out all the time in business. If companies focus only on maximizing their own short-term profits, undercutting competitors, it can lead to a race to the bottom where everyone loses.
It's like a downward spiral of bad decisions.
So the way to avoid this is through cooperation. If businesses specialize in what they do best and cooperate through trade, everyone benefits. Koch points out that the most successful societies throughout history are those that figured out how to cooperate effectively.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. So as a new entrepreneur, think about building a reputation for trustworthiness and collaboration.
Play the long game.
Yes. Building win-win relationships, not just with your customers, but with suppliers, even competitors sometimes. That's how you build a sustainable, successful business.
Yeah, we've covered so much already, from Darwin to game theory. And it's fascinating to see how these seemingly unrelated ideas can be applied to business.
And we're just getting started. Next time, we'll dive into the world of physics and explore how concepts like margin gravity and the relativity of time can help you build a thriving business.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Last time we were exploring these biological laws of business, and now we're going to shift gears and get a little more, physicsy.
Physics and business, that's an interesting combo. I'm intrigued, but also a little intimidated. Physics was never my strong suit.
It might sound a bit out there, but Koch makes some really compelling connections. Like, he uses Newton's laws of motion to explain how competition works in the market. Okay, Newton's laws, I vaguely remember those from high school. Something about an object in motion staying in motion.
That's one of them. But the one he really focuses on is the law of universal gravitation.
Gravity. Okay, now I'm really lost. How does gravity relate to business?
He uses this idea of gravity to introduce this concept he calls margin gravity. The idea is that the closer you are to your competitors, the more they pull down your profits.
So it's like a gravitational pull towards lower margins.
Exactly. The closer you are to those competitors offering similar products or services, the harder it is to maintain those healthy profit margins.
So it's almost like you're trying to escape the gravitational pull of a planet.
That's a great analogy. And to escape that pull, you need to find a way to differentiate yourself, to create some distance. That's where strategic positioning comes in.
So finding my unique niche is like launching myself into a different orbit, where that gravitational pull is weaker.
I like that. Now let's talk about Einstein.
Einstein. Okay, this is getting pretty heavy.
I know. But stick with me here. Einstein's theory of relativity, the key takeaway for business is actually pretty simple. Time is relative.
Relative, meaning it's not fixed.
Exactly. It's fluid, it can be stretched or compressed. And Koch argues that businesses need to really understand this. Think about some of the most successful companies today. Airlines prioritize speed and efficiency. Amazon revolutionized online shopping by offering super fast shipping and convenient delivery options.
So in today's world, time is a major competitive advantage.
Absolutely. Koch encourages businesses to think of product time or service time as a key feature. How can you make things faster, more efficient, more convenient for your customers? Because time is a valuable commodity.
I always feel like I don't have enough time. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that feeling.
It's a common struggle. But Koch has an interesting take on this. He challenges this whole idea of time scarcity.
Wait, so you're saying we're not actually short on time?
He argues that we're not short on time, we're just not using it effectively.
I can definitely see some room for improvement in my time management skills.
The key is to identify and eliminate those low-value activities that are just sucking up your time and energy. Like, are you spending hours on tasks that could be delegated or automated? Are you attending meetings that could have been emails?
Those are good questions to ask myself.
By being more strategic with your time, you create space for the things that really matter. Innovating, thinking strategically, building those relationships with your customers. Now are you ready for something really mind-bending?
Bring it on. My mind is already pretty bent from all this physics talk.
Let's talk about quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics, that sounds way over my head.
I know, it's one of those things that can make your brain hurt a little. But the basic idea is that the universe is not this predictable machine like we used to think.
So it's not all cause and effect.
There's a lot more uncertainty, randomness, probability involved. And one of the key insights of quantum mechanics is that observation can actually influence reality.
Okay, I'm starting to feel like I'm in a science fiction movie.
It's pretty wild stuff. But the takeaway for business is that you can't control everything. You need to embrace that uncertainty, be prepared to adapt and adjust your plans.
So instead of clinging to a rigid plan, I should be more flexible, more responsive to the unexpected.
Exactly. That's what separates the successful entrepreneurs from those who get stuck in outdated ways of thinking.
Okay, so we've talked about biological laws, we've talked about physics. What other scientific principles can help us navigate the business world?
Well, now we're getting into what Koch calls the nonlinear laws of business. These are principles that challenge our traditional linear way of thinking.
Nonlinear meaning?
It's about understanding that things aren't always straightforward, cause and effect. The business world is complex, interconnected, unpredictable.
Got it. So what's the first nonlinear law we should wrap our heads around?
Let's talk about punctuated equilibrium. This idea comes from evolutionary biology, and it suggests that long periods of stability are punctuated by these sudden bursts of rapid change.
So, like, things are cruising along, and then bam, everything changes.
Exactly. Think about the invention of the printing press, the Industrial Revolution, or even the rise of the internet. These were all massive disruptions that completely transformed the world.
And you're saying that these types of shifts happen in the business world too?
All the time. New technologies pop up, customer preferences change, economic conditions shift, and suddenly the whole game changes.
So how can a new entrepreneur, someone just starting out, how can they navigate these unpredictable shifts?
Well, Koch emphasizes the importance of recognizing these tipping points. Those moments when a new product or technology or trend gains widespread adoption.
Like being able to spot those waves before they crest.
Exactly. If you can anticipate those tipping points, you can ride that wave to massive success. But if you're caught clinging to the old ways of doing things, you're in trouble.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. What other nonlinear laws should we have on our radar?
Let's talk about chaos theory.
Chaos theory. Sounds a bit intense.
It can be, but it's also pretty liberating. The basic idea is that small changes can have huge, unpredictable consequences, like the butterfly effect.
That's a perfect example. Chaos theory basically says that in a complex system, you can't always predict how things will play out. A seemingly insignificant decision can set off a chain reaction, leading to either a major win or a major setback.
So how do you even plan for success when things are that unpredictable?
By embracing the chaos, be flexible, be adaptable, have multiple strategies ready to go. Don't get too attached to any one plan because things will inevitably change.
So agility and responsiveness are key.
Absolutely. Being able to pivot, adjust course, that's essential in a world that's constantly throwing curveballs.
Okay, this is really making me rethink my approach to business. What other nonlinear laws do we need to understand?
One more that's really important is complexity theory. This one's all about how complex systems, like businesses, can exhibit this amazing ability to self-organize.
Self-organize.
It means that order and patterns can emerge from seemingly random interactions. Think of a flock of birds, how they move together so gracefully.
Yeah, it's like they're all connected somehow.
There's no central leader dictating their every move, but they still manage to fly in formation, avoid collisions. It's like an emergent intelligence.
So you're saying that businesses can operate in a similar way?
Exactly. Instead of trying to micromanage every little detail, you can create the conditions for self-organization to happen. Empower your team, foster open communication, encourage collaboration.
That's a really interesting way to think about building a company culture. Now, I have to ask about one of Koch's most well-known concepts, the 80-20 principle.
Ah, yes. The Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. It's a simple idea, but so powerful. Roughly 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts.
So if I can figure out what that crucial 20% is, I can focus my energy on the things that really move the needle.
That's the idea. Apply this to all areas of your business. Figure out who your highest value customers are, what your most profitable products are, what your most effective marketing channels are, and then double down on those.
So less is more.
In a way, yes. It's about focusing your energy where it has the greatest impact. Don't waste time and resources on the trivial many. Okay, one last concept to cover, and it's a big one. The paradox of enrichment, entropy, and unintended consequences.
Those sound like some pretty heavy topics.
They are, but they're important to consider. The paradox of enrichment suggests that too much success can actually lead to complacency and decline.
So it's like you get comfortable, you stop innovating, and then boom, you're irrelevant.
Exactly. And then there's entropy. Things naturally tend towards disorder over time. Systems break down, processes become inefficient.
It's like that saying you have to run just to stay in place.
Right. You constantly have to be working to maintain order, to improve, to evolve. And then there's the law of unintended consequences. Every action you take, it creates ripples. And sometimes those ripples have unexpected, even negative effects.
So you're saying as an entrepreneur, I need to be really mindful of the potential consequences of my decisions, even the ones I don't foresee.
Exactly. It's about thinking holistically, considering the long-term impact of your actions.
Wow, this whole deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much, from Darwin to quantum mechanics to chaos theory.
And it's amazing to see how these scientific principles, when applied to the business world, can really give you a framework for understanding the market and making smart decisions.
I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on how to build a successful business. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Remember, the business universe is constantly expanding. There's always room for something new, something innovative, something groundbreaking. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo, to think differently, to embrace the unpredictable.
I love that. So to all our new entrepreneurs out there, keep learning, keep exploring, keep pushing the boundaries. And to our amazing listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll get you next time.